Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, Well with Anika. I'm Anika, and I wanted to come on and talk to you guys while it was still really fresh on my mind about vacationing as a caregiver. A lot of times we look forward to vacationing as a time to recharge and rest and rejuvenate. As a caregiver, we need that. We need to pour back into ourselves. But what about when it's time to travel with family as a caregiver? That takes a lot of time, preparation, patience, and it just takes, some planning prior to, some really good planning prior to. So I have some notes here of some really good suggestions that I took away from the recent vacation we took. We took a week-long vacation to California to see my oldest son, and I took my mother with me, who I've been caring for the past couple of years, and my youngest son went with me as well as my husband. And so all four of us traveled from Ohio to California, and that's a long trip. So if you're interested in something like this, stay tuned for the entire video. So, like I said, over the Thanksgiving holiday, we decided to take the trip across country to see my oldest son in California. And my mother went along with me, my son, my baby boy, who's 13 now, and my husband as well. So, all four of us traveled to California. And as a caregiver, when you go on vacation, you're really worried about or more concerned with the health and care of the person you're a caregiver for, right? And so you want to make sure it's as much of an enjoyable trip as possible for them as it would be for you. So I have a couple of tips here that I wanted to share with you guys about traveling with your loved one as a caregiver. My mother became ill in 2019, and her illness left her unable to do a lot of things for herself. She had to relearn to walk again, eat again, drink again, everything. She was on a ventilator for 3 days. I still haven't done that video. Actually, I've done that video twice, but I haven't uploaded it because I feel like it's either too long or it's just, I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling, and I really just want to get to the point of how, when, and why I became a caregiver. But I end up adding in all these other details. So I'm going to eventually get that up and running because it's really a good story, and I feel like it would be something that might help somebody else, right? So, but today we're going to talk about vacationing as a caregiver. So, the first thing I did was talk to my mom and ask her if this is something she wanted to do. She's on a walk. She walks with a walker and a cane. She does really well with a cane, but sometimes she can be a little wobbly. She does, do her self care like bathing and stuff on her own. She can, go to the bathroom and stuff on her own. So I don't have to go through changing her and, doing those type of needs. It's more so advocating for her, making sure she gets everything she needs as far as medication, that she stays hydrated, that she eats on time, because she's a diabetic, high blood pressure, takes a number of medications as well, and has arthritis, all the things that come along with aging. And so sometimes she just needs a little extra help, but I try to keep her as independent as possible for as long as we can because I want her to feel independent and comfortable with who she is. So I asked her in advance if this is a trip she wanted to take, and we talked about budget. Most of the times when you're caring for someone, they're not working, so they don't have an income. So they have probably a monthly income or a monthly budget that they need to go by. And I wasn't in a position at this time to pay for her trip. So I did share with her the cost of the trip. And I think that's really important to kind of put that out there up front. Sometimes we feel like we want to pay for our loved ones' trips, but we're not able to all the time. Sometimes it's really nice. You can pay for everything and treat them and so they can have, the time of their lives, but there comes a time when you can't. And so you discuss with them about how much it's going to cost, let them know what the budget for the trip is. And for us, I found really good tickets. They were under $500 a piece to fly from Ohio to California, which was really inexpensive compared to the summer rates. I think summer rates were almost upwards to $1,000 per person. So you always want to check on the budget and make sure that your loved one that you're caring for is okay with that budget and it doesn't put them in a bind. A lot of times, if you're on a fixed income every month, you have your bills planned out, or you don't have the budget or the money to actually spend on something extra like a vacation. Once we discussed that with her, she was on board. And then I went to the next planning phase. So the next planning phase consisted of talking to the airline. I wanted to make the airline aware that I did have someone that was going to need assistance. Most airlines have that as an option when you're booking the plane tickets on whether or not this person will need wheelchair assistance. In most cases, when they do need wheelchair assistance, this will allow them to have priority boarding as well. So we went with what's considered a cheaper airline, or one that kind of nickels and dimes you for everything. So we went with Allegiant, but Allegiant was very professional, even though it's considered a lower budget compared to Delta for some people. And I was fine with that. I booked the reservation, chose wheelchair accessibility for her, which bumped us all up to priority boarding, which made it really nice. I also was so glad that I booked at least 6 months in advance. It may have been 5 months in advance. 5 months in advance, because when you look at your seating, we were able to choose our seats. When you look at the seating chart, you're able to choose where you want to sit, and we sat in the second row, both going and coming home. That was really nice because a lot of times, with priority boarding, you're getting on first because they want you to be able to put up your bags, take your time getting down the ramp, and get seated before you get the rush of people coming in trying to put their bags here and there and get seated really quickly. So that was nice. She didn't have to walk all the way to the end of the plane. The restroom was right there, at the front of the plane. So that made it really nice to be able to choose our seats and get them as close to the front as possible. I also went over the airline's restrictions in terms of medication, what could be carried on the plane and what couldn't be carried on the plane. We all know that you can't have over 3 or 4 ounces of liquid. So if a medication that needs to be taken while on the plane possibly is a liquid over that amount, it needs to be inside the actual pharmaceutical bottle that it came in. So, say for instance, there's a medication that your loved one has and it's in an 8 ounce bottle. It needs to have that pharmacist label on it that shows the prescription, how many milliliters it is, how much they're supposed to take, with all of their information. With that being said, you're able to get through security or TSA with that liquid being over 4 ounces. What I did learn is that not all airlines have a sky cap or a handicap accessible advocate that can help your loved one get from point A to point B. So, of course, yes, we were able bodied and we would have been able to push my mom in a wheelchair, but we did ask for this access, or this perk for her to have priority boarding and for someone to be able to wheel her from check in through TSA and get her to the gate and onto the airplane properly and safely. What I learned is now the airports provide that. Back in the day when I used to travel, it was actually the airlines, actual companies that hired people to do that particular service for their airline. And when we were coming home, I did see Southwest had that in California coming home, but flying from Ohio, I didn't see that. I saw that it was actually through the actual airport, but Allegiant was able to set this up for us. I didn't have to reach out to 2 different people to get that type of access for her. Another thing to consider when you're booking your flight, it is how long the flight is and whether or not your loved one is going to need care while they're on the flight. Like I said, my mother is very capable of going to the bathroom back and forth by herself. She had her walker with her, or I'm sorry, her cane with her. We checked the walker, but they didn't charge us for it as an extra bag because it was part of what she needed for her care. But they did allow her cane to come up on the airplane because you couldn't get the wheelchair up there. She was able to go back and forth to the bathroom by herself, but some people aren't able to. Some people do need some assistance with changing and different things like that. So you want to really make sure you're on a flight that's accommodating to your loved one. And the length of flight matters, especially when you're going from Ohio to California or even further, like New York to California. Sometimes you may need to schedule multiple flights so you can stop, say, every 2 hours. And then you also want to judge the time of day you actually book the flight in according to, or in alignment with the way your loved one carries out their day. So if they get up early in the morning, get breakfast, and is eating lunch by 11, and maybe they know the times that they're going to need to go to the bathroom, or the times they need to eat and times they need to take the medication, you may want to line your airline flights up with that. If it's not really a concern and everything can be done on a longer flight without a whole lot of assistance, you can just book a straight through flight. And that's what we did. Our first leg going to California was straight through, and it was 4 hours and 10 minutes. We left from Ohio and got to California within 4 hours and 10 minutes. We didn't have much concern with getting back and forth to the bathroom because, like I said, my mom was able to do that as long as she had her cane. Now, when she got on the airplane with her cane, they did have us put it in the overhead bin so it didn't go flying just in case there was turbulence or something like that. And so they were able to store it on the bin, up in the bin overhead, and then they would take it down for us when she needed to go to the restroom. But just a little tidbit, a reminder, and I'll go over that again. If your loved one does need restroom care or some other type of care, eating, you want to be prepared, or you want to make sure you've made multiple flights between your destinations when you have a longer flight. So what I did see was that we could have flown 2 hours, stopped in one place, and flown another 2 hours to get to the destination, with maybe an hour and a half in between. That may be something you need to get your loved one off, get them changed, get them fed, get them their medications in them, and get back on the plane. Another thing too about medication is you want to make sure you're taking your medication on the plane with you. Do not check it with the rest of your luggage. The reason why I say that is, number one, your luggage can get lost. Okay. And number two, you could have certain types of medications that may interest some people and it get it in the wrong hands. I hate to think like that, but it's a possibility. And number three, you may need it on the airplane. So say for instance, you have a loved one that suffers from anxiety or needs some sort of medication that they take on a regular basis during the time frame that you're on a flight. You want to make sure you have it in your carry-on. So our airline came with, we paid for like this bundle. So it came with our flight. It allowed us to check one bag, and it also allowed us to have a carry-on and a personal item. So we made sure my mom's medication was inside the carry-on just in case we needed to access her medication while she was on that 4-hour flight. So that's another thing to think about as well. If you're traveling with elderly people or a loved one that you care for, as well as children, you want to make sure they're comfortable for the duration of the flight as well. You don't want to be so concerned about your loved one that you're caring for, and then you have this younger child that needs attention too. It's just going to make you crazy. So you want to make sure that you set up your flight ahead of time to where it best serves you as well as your loved ones that you're caring for. So the next thing I wanted to focus on after I got flights taken care of was accommodations. We opted for an Airbnb instead of a hotel. And the reason why we did this was because we knew we were going to be gone for a whole week, and it was Thanksgiving week. So I wanted to make sure I had the amenities I needed to cook. So a really nice, well equipped kitchen with all the cooking utensils as well. And I wanted to make sure that we had a refrigerator and something so my mom can have breakfast in the morning, just different things that she needed. So we opted for an Airbnb, and it was really nice. One thing I wish I had um, realized in the beginning were how many steps there were in the Airbnb. And so I saw that the Airbnb had steps, but I assumed that coming in the door, we would be on a level floor and then it would be an upstairs. So my thinking was, since there was a bedroom on the main floor with the bathroom, that that's where my mom could be. And what I realized is that as soon as you walk in the door, you go straight upstairs. Yeah, it's crazy. So my mom had to go up those stairs just to get to the main floor. So I failed to ask the host how many sets of steps there were. And they didn't have it listed in the Airbnb. So you want to make sure, if an Airbnb is the way you want to go versus a hotel, that you find out how many steps are in there, are in the property, if your loved one has trouble with steps or needs accommodations with maneuvering, is in a wheelchair or something like that. So that was where I kind of dropped the ball. Even though, like I said, I knew there were steps, I didn't know there were steps to the main floor. So once she got up the steps, she was fine. There was a bathroom there was a bedroom there was the kitchen area and the living space where we all, gathered most of the time. And that makes it nice and easy for your loved one to be able to participate in everything that's going on without feeling isolated in another area of the house. and then not to have to navigate a whole lot of stairs. So always ask about stairs when you're searching an Airbnb. A hotel can be a really good choice for you and your family to stay in as well. You know, hotels always have elevators. Most of them will have a mini fridge, of course, handicap accommodations for the restroom, as well as coffee and tea makers and a microwave in some cases. So you always want to read the description, whether it's an Airbnb or whether it's a hotel. You want to go to the amenities and the descriptions and read them very carefully. If you don't see accommodations that you're looking for or that you want, you want to go ahead and either call the host of the Airbnb or call the hotel directly and ask them for what it is that you need for you and your loved one to have a great trip. So the next thing that I did prior to going was, well, I could have did it better. Let me start over. I really didn't do anything prior to going. We were winging it. We said, you know, I knew I wanted to go see my oldest son and my daughter-in-law. We wanted to visit them. We had never been to California before. And then I also called my aunt who lives in Arizona. She was able to come over and visit with us as well for a few days while we were in California. And so we didn't do a whole lot of planning ahead of time, but it was a blessing that we had cousins there and my son was there, and they knew exactly what type of activities we could do to where my mom was still able to participate without having to navigate a lot of stairs or feel like it was a burden for her to be with us, right? Because what I'm noticing with my mom as of late is if I do too much for her, her mood changes. And so she really wants to be as independent as possible, and I want to give her that. So that's something to think about. So, but planning your vacation or your planning your events and activities you want to do ahead of time would be a really good idea. This way, you can tell if there is an handicap entrance, if there are steps, if there is a cafe on location, just in case your loved one needs to eat something, and if there is water available as well. Now, as far as snacks and water and things like that, we brought our own. I stopped at the grocery store prior to actually getting on the flight because I knew our airline did not offer free snacks. And for a 4 hour flight, the pop and cookie that they give or pretzels really isn't enough for my 13-year-old or my mom or my husband. So I made sure that I had snacks in my personal bag. And so when I got to California, we actually had a cousin go to the grocery store for us, which was really nice. She was able to drop the groceries off at the Airbnb prior to us getting there. But what we did also was stopped at the grocery store and grabbed a few more snacks so that when we were out, because in California and wherever you're going, it may take longer to get from point A to point B. In Ohio, we travel quickly. It takes us 15, no longer than 30 minutes to get from one side of town to the other. But when you're thinking about California and some of these other big cities that may have traffic jams and long, wait on the highway due to traffic, you may want to be prepared with using the restroom prior to leaving and then making sure you have a snack and some water with you just in case your loved one or your child may need something to tide them over until you get to your destination or on your way to dinner or lunch or whatever it is that you're doing. So planning ahead of time where you're going and whether they have accessibility for your loved one is key in making sure you have a smooth vacation. We were able to go to museums, we went to the beach, we went to we went to a restaurant, a couple of restaurants. And we also went to this area called the Alley, and it was really nice. Like, it had a whole lot of cheap clothing, and it was a whole lot of like people out on the street, but it was still nice to where my mom could use her walker and navigate that area and be a part of, the action going on down there in the alley. So it was nice that she was able to participate in those things. Another tip I want to talk about too is when it comes to food and drinks. You can't take drinks on the airport from before, prior to going through TSA. So you want to make sure you either have an empty water bottle, like a aluminum bottle, which those are really lightweight, so you can have an empty bottle, or you can have an empty water bottle that you can fill up at the water fountain. Most water fountains these days have a little spigot where you just push the button and the water comes down and fills up your jar, cup, or bottle. So you can take something like that so you don't have to pay for water once you get through TSA. I've seen so many people have to throw away brand new bottles of water prior to going through TSA because you just can't take liquid over 4 ounces through. They're just not going to let you do it. Another good idea that we learned on our way back home is that we're able to freeze water. So you can freeze water, right, prior to getting on the airplane. And as long as it's frozen solid, and this was in California, I don't know about Ohio, but leaving California, coming home, we were able to freeze like 3 bottles of water and go through TSA with no problem. It was a solid, it was not liquid, and they went through the scanner, they looked at it, they said that they were fine with it, and that was great. So what we didn't do was pour some of the water out or drink 1/4 of the water so we can fill it up with some room temperature water and be able to, start to drink it. So during our whole flight, the bottles were frozen solid. Luckily, I did keep an empty water bottle for myself and my mom. We poured our water out prior to going through TSA, and then we refilled them once we got through because we knew those blocks of ice weren't going to be thawed by the time we got on the airplane and started to travel home. So that's another tip for you. Another little tip that might be nice too, if you don't just always want to drink water, you can take little pour-ins. So what I do, because when I get on the airplane, I do have a little anxiety, and sometimes just being on such an enclosed space, it can be kind of like, I don't know, nerve-wracking. But what I do is I take these little pour-ins. One second, I'll show you. So I take a couple of these little CBD pour-ins, and there's one for daytime. It's a daytime drink mix, and then there's a nighttime drink mix. And you just open it up, pour it inside your water, right? And then you just drink it. And so as you're drinking it, the CBD is getting in your system. Your water has some flavor, and you're not just drinking boring water all the time. So these are really great for traveling on an airplane because you can just flavor your water with it once you get on the airplane if you want something other than water. So I always take these little drink mixes with me as well. Let me talk about day of travel going and day of travel coming home. You always want to, with your loved one, make sure you're there an hour to 30 minutes to an hour prior to what the airport tells you you need to be there because your loved one may not walk as fast. You have extra luggage that you kind of have to navigate on your own with your loved one and their walker and all the different things that they need. So just to give you an example, so my mom had her walker and she had her cane. She had her carry-on. We all had luggage, tall luggage on roller wheels. We all had some sort of carry-on. I had a little tote bag. My son had a backpack. My husband had a cinch bag, and I had my son's nebulizer for his asthma as well, with the vials with me as well. So we have all of these things, and of course, my mom can't carry her bag and stuff on her own, and she can't go running to get to the door before the people come with the wheelchair to come get her there. So she needs more time to walk with her walker to get to the counter to check in with her driver's license, do our ticket and everything, and then they have you go sit over in a handicapped chair. So when the skycap comes or the assistant for the airport comes, they can actually retrieve your loved one and get them through TSA into the gate rather quickly. But up until that point, it's just you, your loved one, and family, and all of this luggage and things. So you want to make sure you arrive early enough so you're able to navigate getting from the car to the door. So you may have to park. There may be a shuttle. So what my husband did was he dropped us off at the door with all the luggage. I told my mom to go ahead and head for the door. Me and my 13-year-old tackled all the luggage. You may not have all of these extra people with you. It may just be you and your loved one traveling, and you could have different things that you need to carry with them, oxygen machine or something like that. I don't know. But whatever the case may be, you want to allow yourself enough time to get to the airport and be able to get yourself from the car to the check-in counter in enough time and not be too late. What made it nice though is when you have priority boarding and your loved one is being transported, sorry, and your loved one is being transported, you kind of get ahead of the line. You don't really stand in the line as long as everybody else because once your loved one is considered priority, everyone else in your party is as well, and that makes it really nice where you're able to get through pretty quickly. They help your loved one with their shoes while you're getting your shoes off, taking your jacket off, getting all the stuff out of your pocket, putting your bags inside the scanner to be checked. They're helping your loved one do all of that, so you can take care of all the things you need to do for yourself and your children. So that was really nice. So, but you want to think about, make sure you get there in enough time to where you allow your loved one enough time to get in and not feel rushed. When getting on the airplane, I really don't like to get on soon. I don't like to be the first person on. But with being priority boarding, we had to get on soon. I like to wait until everybody else is on. And then I get on because it leaves me without a whole lot of time to sit on the airplane in this small closed in space before we take off. Once I take off, I'm fine. But just to sit on the runway and wait on everybody to board is a little nerve wracking for me. And that's just my personal issues. So with getting on, you have enough time to getting on early in priority because you're priority at this point with your loved one who has wheelchair access. Um, they have you, put your things away right away, get situated, and you're sitting. You're one of the first people on, like maybe the first two or three people on, along with people who have small children and strollers, along with other military people are considered priority as well. And so you're sitting there for maybe 20 minutes while everybody else is boarding the plane. And then once everybody else gets on, those stragglers, they call and call and call for them at least 10 or 15 minutes prior to closing the actual gate, just to make sure they have everybody on the airplane that they can possibly get on before they take off. They do tell you that they close the gate 15 minutes prior to takeoff, so you really need to make sure you're at the gate at least 30 minutes prior. So if you're having a problem with that, getting there on time, or if you have to get your loved one to the bathroom before they board the plane, that you want to make sure you're really taking care of that immediately and as close to time to take off as possible or time to board as possible, because you don't want to try to rush to the gate because you don't have that capability. You're going to have to push them from the wherever you're sitting and relaxing waiting to the restroom and bring them back. And it can be a little cumbersome. And if it's just you and your loved one traveling, you have to take your carry-ons with you. You cannot leave your bags unattended. So that's something to think about. Also, if you are taking a walker, like my mother did, she had her walker and her cane, but the walker needed to be tagged at the end of the gate. So before we got on the plane, we had to leave it right there at the door with the other strollers and other luggage that may have been too heavy to get in the plane or too big for overhead storage. They take it, tag it, and put it up under the plane. Coming home, they actually checked it for us and didn't charge us, and that was really nice. So while I'm sitting on the plane, a lot of times if I don't have my CBD drink with me, I'll do CBD drops and I'll carry a little small vial full of it, or I'll do some sort of CBD candy or something, suck on a lozenge or something like that. Just kind of helps me, just kind of calm down while I'm sitting there 20 minutes on the runway waiting on the plane to take off. So once you arrive at your destination, the flight attendants tell you to stay seated until your wheelchair is ready, and then someone will be right outside the door for you. But they tell you to stay seated and let everybody else get off the plane. So here you are again, waiting again. You're waiting on everybody to get on, and then you're waiting while everybody gets off in order for you to be able to stand up and leave this aircraft. During this time, you're not able to get back and forth to the restroom either. So, as the plane is preparing to land, you want to make sure that your loved one gets a chance to go to the restroom prior to this actual landing process. So, they're securely in their seat for the landing and are able to wait comfortably while everybody else gets off the plane before they can get off. So when you get off the plane, normally there's someone there waiting with the wheelchair for your loved one and proceeds to take you to the baggage checkout. What I like, or the baggage claim area. What I like about that is they take you through like service elevator areas, so you're not walking where everyone else walks. You go through the service elevator areas and they take you like a back way to pick up your luggage. The negative part can be that your luggage is the only luggage that's going around at this point. So if you're worried about your luggage coming up missing, or concerned that you might not get to it quick enough, and you're traveling with just you, more than just you and your loved one, you may want to have someone go ahead of you and retrieve the luggage and wait until your loved one is brought down. Or you may have to go do it yourself. Once you get your loved one in the wheelchair and they check the boarding pass and find out what baggage claim you're supposed to be picking your luggage up at, you can go ahead and start running towards baggage claim and getting down there much quicker, so you can go ahead and retrieve the bags. So your bags aren't just, because when we got down coming to California, when we arrived, when we got down there, our bags were the only ones going around, and I didn't see one bag, and it was the one bag that had my son's Jordans in it. It had all of my food that I had brought, because I had bought perishable items to use to make my Thanksgiving dinner, and had all of those things in it. And I guess as I was walking around the baggage claim, it was coming around to where I couldn't see it. So my husband was on the other side, and he was like, "No, here it is." So we ended up finding it. So it wasn't like it was missing or anything, but that's always a possibility. And that's the first thing I thought, which is terrible. Shouldn't think negative. And then from that point, you want to make it to the ground transport area. And at that point, that's when the employee from the airport leaves your loved one. They no longer are transporting them. You have to get them from that point to the car, to the Uber, to the rental car place, or whatever the case may be. So you want to go ahead and start to, before you even take this trip, you want to go ahead and find out what that trip is going to look like. And the reason I say that is when we got to California, you had to take a shuttle off the airport to get to your rental car place. In Ohio, or in the Dayton airport, which is really small, all the rental car places are lined up right next to the baggage claim. So you don't have to leave the building to get to the rental car area. But if you have to navigate and get a loved one on a bus or some sort of tram to get them over to the rental car place, then you need to know that ahead of time, so you're able to help, get help doing that. Or you need to find out whether or not you can loop back around and pick them up afterwards. Now, with the California airport, there wasn't any looping back around. Once you got on airport grounds, everything came to a snail's pace. It was really hard, like getting in and out of there. So leaving the California airport was a little cumbersome, I would say, in terms of, having someone that you're advocating for in a wheelchair that can't really deal with all the hustle and bustle. Okay, so maybe you catch an Uber there. Maybe it's easier for them to navigate an Uber to the rental car location, instead of you getting the rental car, trying to swing back around and pick up your loved one. So that's something you want to check into prior to um, traveling as well, depending on where you're going. So I'm just speaking of California and Ohio, but you would look up where it is that you're going. Lastly, I have here is food for your Airbnb. So if you do decide to do an Airbnb, which I totally recommend it, it's just has all the comforts of home. It feels more comfortable for you and your loved ones, I believe. Um, you know, you just have more amenities, I think, other than a hotel, and you're not being charged for every single thing. If you want a cup of tea, sometimes they give you one or two tea bags. Well, with the Airbnb, you can buy groceries. So most Airbnbs, or most cities, have some sort of grocery service, or some sort of click list service, or some sort of grocery delivery service, especially big cities. So in California, there was a Ralph's, and Ralph's is the same as Kroger for us, and they did have delivery option and pickup option. And that was kind of nice because you don't have to worry about like just spending all of your time inside of a grocery store, especially the week of Thanksgiving. So that's something you kind of want to do ahead of time, so you can get there and pick it up. So if you're coming in on a Monday and you want groceries for Tuesday, then you need to call it in Saturday or Sunday and give that pickup time. That gives them enough time to go ahead and pull your food and have it ready for you when you want to pick it up that Tuesday. Some of the foods that I felt like were really no brainers, because I had a 13-year-old. I had my mom as well. She loves to drink tea, hot tea in the morning, or hot lemon water, or coffee, or something like that. So I wanted to make sure We had enough snacks so we wouldn't be eating out all the time because it can get a little expensive when you're eating out, especially in a big city like California. So I got things like peanut butter and jelly, bread, coffee, tea. I made sure we had sugar. I brought seasonings and stuff like that from home because I didn't want to buy like condiments and seasonings all over again. So those are some things I bought from home because I knew I was making Thanksgiving dinner. But continental breakfast items like danishes, orange juice, yogurt, or even the little oatmeal packets and granola. And then having crudité, kind of like carrots or celery or little like pepperoni and cheese, crackers, things like that that you can snack on. Of course, there's always chips and dip and salsa and chips and things like that too. But just things that you can kind of grab and go, and while you're waiting on everybody in the house to get dressed, for us to head out for for the day. We did eat out a few days, and we did cook Thanksgiving dinner, but some of those other days we were kind of chilling at the Airbnb. And it was really difficult getting in and out of our Airbnb because of the neighborhood, the parking situation, and the garage. It was really an ordeal. So we didn't feel like, oh, let's jump in the car and go around the corner to Ralph's. Yeah, Ralph's was right around the corner, but we had more of an ordeal getting in and out of the garage and the space that we actually had our Airbnb in. So you want to be just mindful of that. When you go to the store, try to go with a list so you can remember everything it is that you need so you're not running back and forth to the store, and try to make sure you have continental breakfast items, crudité or charcuterie board items, which is cheese and deli meats. And you want to get cases of water as well. You want to go ahead and get you cases of water. And we were grateful that our cousins were able to grab cases of water for us. I always get alkaline water, and we did get just regular purified water. So you want to make sure you have that on hand as well. And then after you get situated, the first day, a lot of times it's a rest day for your loved one. Traveling can be very like tiring. And so if you're traveling with your loved one who is used to being at home 80% of the time, just basically eating, navigating the house, taking their medication, and watching TV or reading or doing something like that, to get up early in the morning, get on a plane, travel, be carted from one place to another, be on an airplane for a number of hours. This is going to be taxing to them. So that first day, you may not want to plan anything. You may want to plan, or just may not plan anything for them. This could be a time that they just rest up for the next day and what you may have planned for the next day. So I think that that's really a good idea because they've been out of their normal routine, and this will just give them a chance to breathe, catch up on medications if it was late, get them something to eat, and get some rest for the next day. So I hope that this was interesting to you. I hope it helps someone who may be thinking of traveling with a loved one that they care for. I believe it's important for us to just try to lead our lives as normal as possible. I know it's not always financially feasible to take vacations, but when you have an opportunity to, and you can expose your loved one to, a different city, or take them on a flight or a beach or something like that, then I think you should. If you're able to, do it. You only live once, and you want to create those memories with your loved ones, and you want to know that they had a good time for as long as they're here on this earth, and you deserve it as well. Like I said, my aunt came in town from Arizona to California, and she was able to help my mom quite a bit, which gave me freedom to just kind of like walk with my husband, talk with my children, just to kind of go, to the bathroom and just do different things that I needed to do without worrying about my mom sitting here by herself. Or, and she was able to, she bought my mom snacks, made sure my mom got to the bathroom okay, stuff like that. And so that was really a huge help. So, I encourage you not to travel alone. I mean, of course, if you have to travel with your loved one alone, that's fine. You just make sure you plan ahead, and make sure you have all the accommodations and accessibility you need for them. But if you can travel with someone else that can kind of give you a break and also advocate for them while you take care of yourself, that's even better. Put it out there. This is holiday season that we're in, and you might want to talk to loved ones like, hey, I would love to take, our loved one here, there, next, this summer. Can one of you guys plan to come with us and help me while we travel? So I think that would be cool to kind of plan things like that and get out of the house, get out of the city, and just live. Life is short. Life is short. So I hope you got value from this. And if you did, why don't you share this video with another caregiver friend? This may be something that they never thought about, that they could travel. Somebody might be feeling imprisoned in their home because they're caring for a loved one, but you can get out and you can still live. I know everybody doesn't have the same level of care, or the same level of needs. If you can do it and you're able to get your loved one out to travel, you should take advantage of that. It's a new season, guys. Be well.